I'm 𝗪𝗶𝗹𝘀, and you're listening to What the Heck Fintech, where you'll experience and learn that Fintech is FinLife. Let's get started. Welcome back to Part 2 with Wilson Wong. If you didn't hear Part 1, please go back and listen and hear about Wilson's journey from being a software engineer at MIT to becoming a CS professor at major universities, and how he brings real-world scenarios into his classroom every single day. And I remember too, and I'd like to get your take on this now that we're talking about data a little bit. When we did some projects, I mean, your students were always very excited to get their hands dirty with some data science and you know, some AI. How is that showing up in your classes now? Because I haven't been at WPI for a few years now. Because everything is about LLMs and everything. Does that show up in class now, or do you just defer it because that's another area of WPI and the data science and AI? How do you handle that?
Well, the data science and both the data science and AI are, and especially AI, they're becoming really important parts of computer science.
Yeah.
So with respect to the LLMs, we have actually begun to incorporate that into our classes. And as for me specifically, the use of LLMs is being incorporated into software engineering. But not only that, this upcoming year, I've actually modified the class projects to include a component that will involve the creation of some LLM based features.
Yep.
So I think it's important not only to start incorporating the use of LLM into computer science, but also the creation of applications that are LLM based, because we're seeing more and more of this taking place now. And I do believe that it's just going to accelerate in the upcoming years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more I talk with venture capital and startups too, right? And a lot of venture capital will say that, okay, you need to do AI, whether it's part of your product or you're using it operationally wise to be more efficient, to run your business and to run your startup and to kick and understand your customers. Either one, you need to use it. So yeah, I think that's awesome that that's starting to be incorporated, because that's what I'm hearing out as I talk to more and more startups and venture capital. And I go to AI forums for biotech, and it's the same challenges data-wise that we were talking about from years ago. The data is so big, it takes long to run the models, and you need stuff real world. And now there's fintech AI. Well, it could be on anything, but say fintech AI for infrastructure to get that down 1,000 times smaller, so it's 1,000 times faster, so you can run models real time and with no PII. So yeah,
Right.
Actually take a look at it. Here's a little tip for you. Go 𝗪𝗀, which is a startup, and they were on this podcast. Watch that podcast. What they're doing is amazing. And obviously they're focusing on fintech, but it could be used in any area. In any area, because that's coming so critical, is that the data is so large, it's hard to pivot and run your models and change models and join other models, and don't have to worry about PII, personal identification, in those models. You can share them inside your company or even outside, but they're still statistically perfect from a model standpoint. So
Right.
and I'll be introducing you to them. That's in the plan. Jensen wants to meet more, wants to meet you, because I've talked about him. I'll talk about you.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah. So I think it'll probably fit perfectly into one of your classes or projects or whatever too.
That would be exciting.
So I know you're an author. Let's hear about that a little bit, right? I mean, wow. Okay, and so let me hear. And it was on computer science, correct? I assume.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to hear that story too.
So the textbook of which I'm a co-author, my co-author is actually my mentor who convinced me to become a professor. So I get to thank, and when I have bad days, I get to blame him for it. But overall, I definitely thank him a lot more than I blame him. So the textbook is on computer, actually, it's on hardware architecture, networking, and software systems. And it's really geared primarily, initially, it was primarily geared towards a computer information systems audience, but actually the book was written with enough technical components to it and also with enough of a business perspective introduction that it's used in both information systems in business schools at the undergraduate and graduate level, and in computer science programs at the undergraduate and graduate level. So the book has a very broad reach, and it was an exciting project. I've worked with my co-author on this since the third edition, not immediately as a co-author. I assisted with some chapters. I assisted with supplementary materials, and especially the PowerPoint slides, which I remember at the very beginning, I took one look and I said, Irv, you need some help with this. And after we talked, he agreed. So that's how I got started with the textbook. And I became a co-author in the last edition, which was a tremendous amount of work. Writing a book, especially that type of book, really does require a huge amount of time and effort. And surprisingly, I actually have to thank the COVID pandemic for having been able to crank out that entire book, because I basically just sat at home for an entire year and a half, and what else did I have to do? So that's how I wound up being involved with that textbook. And I'm excited for the next edition. I'll be the first author on that particular edition.
Wow, that's awesome. And what level? It's introductory, or is it for any level of a computer science student?
It's at the, I would say it's for the sophomore level all the way up to the graduate level.
Nice.
So and it's usable in information systems, computer information systems, and computer science programs. I actually got the list of American and Canadian schools that were using the textbook, and I was pleasantly surprised to see the wide variety of institutions that are actually using the book.
And I want to give a little call out to you too, just because your background and everything you just talked about. Having that, I think when I first met you, obviously computer science, PhD, MBA, that combination is huge, right? I mean, and that's and you could tell your focus and how you're teaching and training and getting the lead, the CS leaders of the future in fintech or in any industry, how important it is to have that business value. I don't know if you want to go any deeper on that, because all the conversations we have, you're very focused on that. Like, what's the business value? What's it really doing? Does this even make sense? I mean, I love because you have that you have that deep business background too.
I definitely agree that having the combination of the two is incredibly valuable, and it's one of the reasons why I think fintech and fintech majors are going to be an incredibly valuable group of employees in the future. We really need more people who understand the connection between business and technology, and especially computer technology.
Yep.
So there's so much that's taking place now with computer science, with AI, with big data, and everything's becoming more and more complex as time goes on. And as a result, the need for someone who understands both sides and could communicate to people on both sides, I think, is just going to become even more valuable as time goes on.
And here's a question for you too, because you're teaching all the time, right? And you're working with industry a lot too. The world's moving so fast. Can you do some compare and contrast of like just over the last 5 years? What trends are you seeing, right? Because you've seen a lot in your career. What trends are you seeing in computer science and just students and learning and industry they like to share, and especially with AI and everything too? Like, what trends are you seeing that are repeating itself or are totally different and things that we've never seen before? I'd love to hear that perspective.
Well, Rob, I think both of us have been in the industry for a long time. I actually was part of an undergraduate research opportunities group project at MIT that's referred to as MIT Europe. And the project that I worked on at the time was porting the TCP/IP protocol to the IBM PC. I'll be right out honest about this. I was basically a freshman at the time, barely had a clue as to what I was doing. I appreciate it a whole lot more now that it's many years later. But that gives you an idea as to how long I've been around the industry. And I've seen many different technologies now come about, a lot of different tech revolutions, and I see the exact same trends take place over and over and over. There's some technology that is incredibly useful, incredibly exciting, and everyone goes ahead and works to, do the most that they can in that particular technology. Let's just take something way back. The personal computer. In the very beginning, there were a lot of different personal computers. Everyone could tell this was the thing of the future. And then it shook out. There were a small number of winners. The market then dipped for a period of time, but we all knew that it was going to just continue. We then get the next innovation that changed everything, which was personal networking. And again, we had all different types of network protocols that were competing, everything from BitNet to Usenet to my favorite was the CHAOSNet at MIT, which was a blazingly fast network that I believe was funded by DARPA. And by the way, I have a fond spot for the CHAOSNet because there I was sitting in MIT's Tech Square, working away as an undergraduate. I think I was a junior at the time. No, sophomore at the time. And at one point, I was sending a really large file, large by those days, and I actually tripped something experimental. I FTP'd the file over, and I suddenly got this message that said that the ComSat satellite was engaging. and then it blasted the entire message in like some ridiculous vast amount of time for that period of time. And then it said ComSat satellite disengaging.
Oh my.
But to get back to the technology innovations, so there were many different types of networks, and it solidified to a few, and now it primarily has come down to the internet. But networking propelled all sorts of technologies and innovations, and then, of course, there was a little selling out of the market, but that just permitted the World Wide Web to come around. We've had the same thing with mobile. And I think AI, from everything I'm looking at, is following the exact same trend. Yes, there are some differences about this, but in every single technological situation that we've had, and especially the more recent ones, people keep saying, oh, we don't need programmers anymore. We don't need IT people anymore. When Windows 95 came out with the graphical user interface, people actually said at the time, I remember this really clearly, they said, oh, now we don't need IT people to help us with our computers. And instead, over time, it's been the reverse, because what generally happens with these technologies is there is a desire to maximize what you can get out of the technology. So as a result, the technology becomes more complex, and more complex over time. So initially, yes, there's a bottoming out of whatever the technology trend is, like the dot-com bust. Everyone was able to create web pages, so then you didn't need as many people creating them. But then people wanted more and more out of what they could display on a web page. You got e-commerce, you got microservices, you got more and more complex technology that, to the point today, if you were to hand code an entire website, this is a complicated thing to do that you wouldn't expect a typical person to do by themselves.
Right.
And AI, yes, AI is writing code for us. One of the challenges, of course, is once the code is written, how well does it go ahead and update the code? How do you maintain that code? That becomes much harder to do. But at the same time, I think we're going to start to demand more and more and more from AI and what AI can do. And we're beginning to see that with the model context protocol that's allowing us to have a better control of how we're incorporating the different LLMs and local data. And my prediction is there may be a shaking out of AI to come that people are talking about, but I'm convinced we will want more and more possibilities from what we can do with AI, and that's going to result in higher complexity, which then again will necessitate the need for people who have that technological background, but especially people who have that technological background who can then talk to business people so they can make the most of it.
Right. Right. I totally agree with you. I mean, have we ever talked about the Gartner hype curve?
Yes,
have you ever seen the Gartner hype curve?
Of course.
It's like everyone,
I'm a big proponent.
You get this whole, it's like not just technology, but it's life, right? Okay, what is this? What's AI? All these different tools. Then you hit the peak, and everyone's like, yeah, let's go. The market gets big, right? Everyone starts jumping on board. big announcements are happening, and then you realize, well, this is not quite as good as we thought. And you don't come all the
Right.
way down here. And you hit the trough of despair, right? And then you
Mhm.
come back up, and you don't go all the way up to the top, but then you level up because now you know what's behind
Mhm.
curtain number two, right? And then you
Right.
can grow and take it to the next level. And then we start understanding, and then the breakthroughs happen because then we got like your story. I was just the whole story you would say, and I was thinking that's almost like that's like another way to
That
tell the
is
Gardner
the
hype curve.
exact curve. That is the
Yeah,
exact curve that I believe in.
right. And everyone
And I
right
believe
here
we're
are all
approaching
hyped
it.
up. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
talked over you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, I really believe that in the midst of that curve right now, and we're not quite at the peak. I think there's a lot more that can be done immediately with
Mhm.
AI, but
Yep.
we're starting to reach the point now where I think companies are beginning to realize, oh, AI is not doing everything that we were expecting it to do, especially with the creation of code. There have been a few reports coming out that the benefits from generative AI in code assistance is not as as productive as they have been expecting. Um, Although I do believe that with some time, companies are going to figure out how to best use generative AI in a way that will overcome a lot of these problems that they've been seeing.
Right, right. It'll take away the low level work, so then we can focus on the higher value added work.
Mhm.
And I mean, everyone's talking about Vibe and that's good for prototyping. That's good to get
Yeah,
arms around to then see this is doable. And then you got to get it, you got to get a production hardened, right?
yeah,
And it has to fit into every environment's different, right? Everything's not homogeneous. Some is cloud, some is mainframe, some, security concerns, depends on the data, depends on the regulations, depends on all. So it's Vive is great for, I think, more quickly prototyping and getting ideas, which is awesome from an agile standpoint. But then you have to, production ready it. And then even with the whole DevOps to deliver things quickly from an agile mentality, but then get the infrastructure. There's now AI ops I'm hearing about
mhm,
that to also do that to help that along too. That's a totally different mindset, and we're not. A lot of people aren't even ready for DevOps. Everyone thinks they're trying to do DevOps, and AI ops is a step past DevOps. So and we're
right.
not ready for. I don't think a lot of companies have the culture yet to do DevOps properly. Plus it's making things more complex because things happen
Mhm,
so much quicker now too. So that's
right.
why computer science is going to be the exact opposite. It's going to be we need more. I
Absolutely.
totally agree with you. From what I'm hearing out there, and people that are really into it, they're learning every day of what this is all about. And so
Yeah,
you're going to need more computer science to be able to connect those. And the computer science professionals be doing higher value added work than what they did back in, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, right? Because it's needed.
absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the really exciting things that I'm looking forward to is um, figuring out um, how do we turn our entry level developers, students who have just graduated, how do we turn the current type of students that we're generating right now into the equivalent of senior developers, where they're able to go ahead and take a project, take an application, um, split it up in multiple parts, and then parcel it out to generative AI and be able to control it and bring it all together like a seasoned senior software engineer would do. I think that is really the new challenge that we have in the universities. We need to get to the point where we're not just generating the same type of software engineers and developers that we have been helping to teach all these years. We need to rise up and create the next category, the future software engineer. And I believe that's going to be someone who works almost like an entire team by themselves. But that's going to bring its own, it brings its own productivity, higher level of productivity, but it's going to bring its own higher level of challenges. Yep. Because just as with senior software engineers today, the type of communication, the type of interaction with other teams and the rest of the company, that complexity is also going to have to be something that our future software engineers are going to need to learn to be able to operate in the future software development industry.
Wow. Wilson, I just want to, unbelievable, the vision you just gave us all. I'm excited. I can't wait. I agree with you. It's going to be unbelievable. So, I mean, first thing I want to say, Wilson, thank you so much. What you just laid out for business students listening to this, computer science students, executives, how they should get their workforce in place, and that you're getting them ready for that workforce in place. Unbelievable. I mean, you've taken the whole dialogue to a whole nother level about this. Wilson, I want to say thank you so much for coming on What the Heck FinTech. I love, obviously, we see each other personally and we'll go out, but what a great dialogue we just had. I love it. I'm just so happy other people are going to be able to hear the great words that you teach all the time.
Thank you. This is really an exciting time to be in our industry.
It is. So I want to say thank you, Wilson, and thank you, everybody. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to What the Heck FinTech. Make sure you tune into our next episode as we continue to interview FinTech leaders and share real-world stories from across the FinTech ecosystem, so you can fully understand that FinTech is FinLife.